Welcome to episode 3 of our podcast. Glad you're joining us along the journey. So, today's episode is going to be about commercial real estate foundations, and we mean this literally and figuratively. If you think about it, a commercial real estate property with an unstable foundation, what's going to happen? Eventually, the building's going to fall over and crumble. However, a building built on a very solid foundation can last for centuries. So, I genuinely hope you understand the impact and effects of having a good, solid foundation for your business. What does that allow you to do? Well, if you start with a good base, you can build a very strong, very successful, and most importantly, very lucrative brokerage career upon a solid foundation. Tune in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Chapter 3, Commercial Real Estate Foundations. Without a foundation, you can kiss the stability of your house goodbye. The same goes for business. No foundation, no lasting success. First and most important pillar in your game plan on how to approach commercial real estate and the foundations of your business. If you think about it, building a business is no different than building a building. You can try to build the tallest structure in the world, but if you don't have the right set of plans and you don't build it on a solid foundation, sooner or later it's going to tumble. First and foremost, it's literally and figuratively a foundation because everything builds off the base of knowledge that you start with in commercial real estate. Everything comes from the plan that you set in place and build your business upon. You can find clients by dialing the phone book, but I'd rather find them from people who have already told me they want to sell or they already own homes or businesses or buildings. More work is not necessarily more better. I think the best mistake for people to make would be wasting time spinning their wheels and trying to figure out commercial real estate on their own. Everyone would love to be able to beat their chest with pride and say, I figured this all out on my own. But what winds up happening is people getting frustrated. They blow through their savings only to leave the business a year or two later and get a 40-hour-a-week job that they were, frankly, trying to avoid in the first place. The most expensive resource in the world is time. If you think about it, it's the only non-renewable resource. You can always go out and earn more money, but you can never get the time back that you wasted going down the wrong path. Most brokers don't make a whole lot in their first year or two because the majority don't have a mentor and they don't have a plan to execute on and they don't have the right information or resources. It's good to know that you're on the right path and that you're doing the right activities. But if you don't have traction, you get a little bit frustrated. You're living off your savings until things get rolling. Most people don't have more than a year or two of savings set aside before they start to take loans and so forth. You're trying to learn something that you've never done before while your life savings are dwindling. You're essentially betting your life savings on the hope that commercial real estate brokerage will pan out. Well, you're working 6 and 7 day weeks, all while still not knowing if what you're doing are the right activities with the highest probability of meeting your goals. That is, no doubt, the biggest mistake people make. Money going out with no money coming in. Most people's greatest fear is failure. Nobody likes to lose. I've been a broker trying to figure it out, and when I went down some wrong paths, you always have to look at the cost-benefit ratio of any venture. All too often, people go into a new line of work like commercial real estate because they see the cost benefit. They see how lucrative it can be and how much money they can make. But the biggest oversight that they fail to plan is how they're going to win. Remember, failing to plan is planning to fail. If you think about it, you are undertaking commission-only work. And even though the payoff can be huge, you still need the staying power to get to the point where you'll be making those big commission checks. And they can be very big. They can be 6 figures, even larger sometimes. As a result, most people who are taking on this endeavor don't make enough to live. They wind up depleting their savings and they decide to quit after their first year or two. Now, follow my logic here. If you're attempting to take on a tough line of work that's pretty difficult and it takes you depleting your life savings to be successful, you are essentially betting all your chips to learn this skill. The question I ask you is, are you willing to bet every single penny that you've ever worked for? If you are willing to do so, doesn't it stand to reason that you'd want to do absolutely everything in your power to ensure that the bet you made would pay off? That's what I did. I went into commission-only work. I watched my savings deplete. I struggled. Finally, I figured it out. I put the pieces together, my business took off, but in the meantime, I know what it's like to be unsure and say, okay, is this going to pay off? Is going down this wrong road going to down that road? I highly recommend that making sure that you take the steps to ensure your success in whatever endeavor it is that you go into. Putting your plan in place. Once you have the plan and the path carved out for you in your next deal, you can proceed with confidence. You're not guessing. You're not going in blindfolded, stabbing in the dark. You're only spending your time and effort with the highest probability activities and utilizing your time as efficiently and effectively as possible. You can move through the world because there's a big disconnect, especially on the commercial side of real estate, between your efforts and your results. Sometimes it can be 3, 6, 9 months, even a year between the effort you put forth on one side and seeing results on another. I had a transaction close recently, and it took me 3.5 years from the first time I prospected till I cashed the commission check. A whole lot can happen in that time, and your confidence in your process can certainly waver. The nicest thing about having a plan with a foundation in place is knowing you are on the right path. You know you're doing the right activities and headed in the right direction. The most important thing is to focus your efforts. Make sure you're going true north, because if you're just a few degrees off, you're not going to wind up someplace where you don't want to be. Your game plan acts like a compass. I mean, if Columbus had been off by just a few degrees, he would have wound up in Canada or South America in the other direction. Once you have these foundations set in place, you'll know exactly what you don't know. You won't wonder. At the very least, you'll know where you might have to fill in to round out the rest of your education, but you'll at least know which way south is, and you'll know what direction you'll have to head in so that you can continue your education and you can move your career forward. I think the biggest encouragement I'd like to leave you with is that you're not that far off. If you're heading to Spain, let's say 1 or 2 degrees of deviation to the north is going to put you in England, or 1 or 2 degrees of deviation is going to send you to Africa. The point is, you have to dial in your path, but you're not that far off. Sometimes it just takes a very small adjustment in your course and you'll be hitting where you want to. I think that's the biggest takeaway, really.